Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I am so looking forward to talking with my guest today because we're going to be talking about some things that are very important and often get overlooked, especially in the business world. And so please join me in welcoming Todd Bertsch to our program today. Welcome, Todd. How are you doing this morning?
Hi, I'm doing great, Deb. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for our conversation.
Perfect. I love it. Well, let me tell folks just a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this.
All right.
So Todd Bertsch is a keynote speaker and mental fitness coach who helps mission-driven organizations reignite their spark by transforming stress and burnout into sustainable growth. With more than 17 years as a CEO and experienced on serving on nonprofit executive boards, Todd brings real-world leadership insights to his SPARK framework. And that's in all caps, so I'm guessing it's an acronym that we'll talk about. Blending neuroscience, behavioral psychology, and practical tools, he equips nonprofit leaders to build cultures rooted in clarity, capacity, and lasting impact. Todd is also the author of the upcoming book, Ignite Your Spark. So again, Todd, welcome.
Thank you, Deb. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Well, I always want to know from my guests how it is that they got to where they are today.
Yes, that's the question, right? And typically it's not a straight line. Let's be honest. It bends and curves all over the place.
And goes backwards and forwards
and the more journey you have, the more curves you have, right? So mine was definitely bending around a lot of curves. But how I got to this place where I'm at now as a keynote speaker and mental fitness coach, podcast host, really started off as a graphic designer. That's my background. I went to school for graphic design, which I absolutely love. It's a wonderful field. Even today with AI cannot do the graphics like
I know. I just had a new logo redesigned, and I had a person do it.
Good for you, Deb. Good for you. I love it. And don't get me wrong, I use AI all day. It has its place, but creating graphics and photos, not so much. But anyhow, so graphic design, and then I got into the ad agency world, and then in 2009, I started my own company, Evolve Marketing, which is focused on digital marketing and website design development, which is pretty much what I hung my hat on for my career, so about 30 years in that industry. And then over COVID, lots of time to reflect, as most of us had. We had plenty of time to do a lot of things, but reflection was definitely on the top of my list. And as I was reflecting, Deb, and we came back to the office, so to speak, and things were kind of normal, and most of my team didn't come back physically to the office. It was different, and it really took some of the wind out of my sail, and that's why I reflected a bit more and realized that, I've been doing this agency life for a long time, service industry, which can be somewhat of a grind, and I pivoted, and that's when I realized that my spark, if you will, wasn't as ignited as it could or should be. And, at my age, Deb, and I'm sure you feel the same way, like I need to be lit up every single day. Life is too short. I want to really be passionate about what I'm doing. And I want to help people. That's always been the core of my mission personally. And, I brought that into my company as well. So that's when I said, okay, here's the ecosystem. I'm going to keynote speak. I'm going to go into mental fitness coaching, and we'll talk a lot about that, I'm sure. And then, I've always wanted to have a podcast like Deb. And so that's why I started the show, the Bolt Podcast. So that's what kind of brought me here today, to have these wonderful conversations. But again, the goal, the mission is to help people embrace change, overcome change, and really get into a growth mindset and light that spark.
Right. And on your website, you've got a little bit more background. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit because it truly has made you who you are today. And one of the things that you are very proud of is the fact that you were a hospital janitor.
Mm.
And now you are this executive, you are speaking to, very high-powered people, working with them. How did that kind of help you along that journey?
Yeah, thank you for doing your detective work. Yes, I was a janitor for about 8 years when I was a teenager, and then through my 20s. And Deb, at one point, I was just mopping the floor from ground to seven. Boom, boom. It was like Groundhog Day. And I remember vividly, Deb, I would get to the seventh floor and I would look out of the window. There was this big window that looked out over the ER where the helipad was. And I would watch doctors leave, surgeons leave, because that's seemed like where they all parked. And I would watch them leave in their BMWs and their Porsches and, their Mercedes. And I thought, I would love to be that someday. Not necessarily that, but to have that kind of respect.
Right.
And really just to have that purpose. But for many years, Deb, I really didn't. I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have any drive. And one piece that I'll share during that time period was I was into drugs and alcohol. And I was living in a fog for many years. And I started young at 14 years old. And then there was an incident that happened when I was 21 when I got beat up, really beat to a pulp by a couple guys I was living with. Not a great situation. And it was within that moment, Deb, where I went back to my parents' house, same house that I grew up in. And it conjured up all these memories. And I got really curious and I went up to my old bedroom, which was, like a time capsule.
Isn't that weird?
My dad's a hoarder, doesn't throw anything away. And he had these boxes in the closet that were full of my old sketchbooks and old art projects. And I picked one up and I sat on the floor and I'm flipping through the pages. And I mean to tell you, Deb, just something in me came alive. I shifted in that moment because I remembered who I'd always been, which is somebody who was extremely curious, who loved designing, creating, drawing, and loved building something. And in that moment, I think I reignited my spark. And 2 weeks later, I enrolled in college and got, 6 long years working full-time, going to school full-time as a janitor, non-traditional, got my degree, and then went on into my career. But what that taught me, Deb, was, to be humble, humility. I mean, I'm at and nothing against janitors. My dad was a janitor too.
We couldn't function without them. Let's be honest.
Right. They're an integral part. And I actually took that role as a janitor more than just somebody cleaning the floors because, I worked in the OR. I worked in oncology. I worked in the ER. I was in every aspect of that hospital. And I met a lot of people, both the people working, nurses, doctors, surgeons, but also patients, many patients. And often
at their best and their worst.
Yes, exactly. And oftentimes, Deb, I would have to go into a patient room to clean or do whatever. And those patients, all they wanted was somebody to talk to. It was really sad because many of them didn't have any visitors. They were there alone, going through this, whatever surgery or whatever illness they had, and they just wanted somebody to talk to. So I said, well, hey, I'm in this role. I can do something more than clean the floor. I can be that person, that we can have a conversation or just listen, just listen to the person. And that went a long way. So, it taught me some communication skills and really just to never assume, what people are going through and that you can turn any situation into a gift and an opportunity. And that's what I did. I made the best of it. And, here I am now running a business, 17 years in business. And the ironic thing, Deb, you'll appreciate this. A couple of years ago, I joined a nonprofit board. And I didn't know this, but I go to the first board meeting and here's a doctor that he is doing his residency while I was there as a janitor. I don't know if he remembered me or not, but I was like, so here we are, full circle moment. We're sitting on the board for this nonprofit. and I'm not a janitor anymore. And we're in the same role. That was kind of cool. I haven't actually shared that on a show yet, but so that was a neat moment. So yeah, that's my kind of my janitor story. Some days, Deb, man, I wish I was back there just mopping the floors, right? Some days it was just easy work, just up and down, and not a worry in the world, so to speak. Running a business can be quite hard, but yeah, it keeps me humble for sure.
Yeah. And there is no role that is not important. I remember, I'm from Denver. And one of, my things that, of course, being from Denver is you root for the Denver Broncos. And I loved, and still follow a lot of the leadership things from Peyton Manning, right? And I remember one of the things he said was when he first went to the Broncos, he had the office staff make a binder that had bios and pictures of every single employee, from the janitors up to the general manager, right? And he said because, first of all, he wanted to always be able to call them by name. He didn't care who they were. He wanted to call them by name because that showed that they were important to him. And he said more than once that janitor has given them a game-winning play. Have you ever thought about doing this or things like that? And he said so he learned, very early in his career, and I don't know if it was at Tennessee or, Indianapolis or wherever, but that, there is no unimportant person and not to overlook anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. That's funny that you bring that up, Deb. I didn't know that. Thank you for sharing. But I did a keynote last year for a caregiver conference. And that was one of the stories that I ended with that specifically was every role matters. And I explained kind of my role as a janitor and really kind of about me taking the role to a different level as almost a customer representative. And as, families would come in to visit somebody in the hospital, they're stressed, trying to navigate, trying to find where it's at. And I would go and help them say, let me, I'm not just going to tell you where to go. I'm going to,
I'll show you.
I know this place. And it's just that simple thing, but it put a smile on their face. It took a little bit of the stress off. So there are these moments, and yes, every role matters. That whole experience, soon as they park, right? They park, parking deck.
Oh yeah, how many times have gotten lost going into a hospital?
Oh yeah, and some of them are really a maze. So yeah, every role matters. I couldn't agree more.
I love that. And oh gosh, so many questions in my little brain. One of the things that you talk about in your presentations and when you work with people is mental fitness. How is that different from mindset and mental health?
Yeah, mental fitness is all about building a mental muscle. So picture this, Deb, as you would go to the gym and work out or yoga, Pilates, whatever you do, you're building some sort of muscle. Well, mental fitness is about building your mental muscle. And you do that through repetition, just like you would do anything else. And that's by doing mental fitness exercises. And really they're, at least in the program that I teach, Positive Intelligence, it's really light meditation. Sensory meditation. So maybe rubbing my fingers, maybe listening and focusing in on the farthest sound or the closest sound, maybe touching, tactile. And when you do this over time, you actually rewire your brain. It is absolutely crazy. And I'll tell you, Deb, the reason why I'm a coach of this program is because during COVID, I went through it as a client.
Right.
It literally changed my life. It changed who I am as a person, as a father, as a parent, how I lead, and how I run my business. It is insane how plastic our brains are. So you can literally lay down new neural pathways. And it's a beautiful thing.
Right.
When you can lead, when you have self-command of your thoughts and emotions, it doesn't mean we run away from challenges or we don't hold people accountable. It's about having the command and the resiliency to be able to regulate, when stress gets elevated. And then you can come into a conflict or a challenge, especially as a business owner or high-level leader, and just be calm, peace, and not reactive. Because we know what happens when we are reactive. We end up saying or doing something that we might regret. We're not really just taking in the full picture. So yeah, it's a very, very powerful program. Not very popular. They don't do a lot of marketing. It's not like Strength Finders or DISC or some, household names in terms of leadership programs, but they really rely on the coaches to go out and sell it. But it works. It absolutely works.
Right. Yeah, I'm fascinated by this because my brain has gotten itself wired differently over the last 10 years on my cancer journey because it did not go well. And so in 10 and a half years, I have had 34 surgical procedures where I've been totally under general anesthesia. Some, short, some
Sure.
7+ hours. And it rewired my brain. I mean, that is not what your brain likes to do. And so, I found doing Sudoku, doing, things to make my brain work is what I needed to do. And it's really funny because I remember one of the times when I was in the hospital, my doctor came in and she said, "Are you reading?" And I used to read a lot. And I said, "Well, no, it's hard." And she said, "I don't care if all you're doing is reading People magazine." So she said, "You need to get your brain going back in that direction." And we've certainly seen things where, people learn to play the piano. And so then that does, things in their brain and all sorts of things. And I mean, it's just, to me, it's fascinating because the brain is so powerful and we're still learning so much about it.
We are, and I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah, neuroscience has came a long way, and there's been a lot of great studies that have been published over the years. And this program that I'm talking about, Positive Intelligence, is based on neuroscience and several different behavioral psychology programs and studies. And he just took it with his own research from Stanford and really kind of broke it down to the simplest form. But I want to share, Deb, to that point you were talking about, and I was talking about my mother. My mother is going through early Alzheimer's, unfortunately. And here I have all this knowledge and all these tools to coach. And, my mom is always been quite negative to begin with. Love her to death. That's just,
She knew my mother.
maybe so. But, and she, we talk about it. She would say the same thing. But I'm now promoted to caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, how can I, as a son, help her, right? And so we're doing a lot of the same things. And it's interesting, the approach that I'm taking, because I've been through this positive intelligence program. I'm really not leaning into her negativity, and I'm able to kind of bring my positivity. So there's a contagion effect. They say there's a psychological study. It says it takes 3 positives to overcome 1 negative.
Right.
So I'm coming in very hot with positivity, 1. And then 2, she's now kind of listening to me and starting, we just actually started down this program of trying different things. And I said to her, and fortunately my dad's still around and, he's up there, they're in their 80s. And I said, "Okay, guys, you can sit on this couch, but this couch in this living room watching TV all day long is a death zone."
Right.
And I said, one thing, use it or lose it. It's up to you. I would help you. I will be your coach, your guide, your trainer as much as you will allow me. But if you just focus in on that one concept, and that's your brain and the rest of your body, you have to move and you have to use your brain. And so what do? I just bought them big puzzles, like with 50 pieces, big puzzle pieces.
Right, because they
One
couldn't
thing.
the itty bitty little.
No, they can't see them and it's too small. So big puzzles, Sudoku, jigsaw puzzles, and then some brain games. It's simple cognitive exercises, memory games. And then you can get all kinds of them on Amazon, or you can get them in a little paperback. But so the idea is, 1, get up and move 5 minutes and then move get your brain moving as well. Do some cognitive exercises, and they can be fun. And I got them playing card games, and so it's just to your point, Deb. You have to use it. And if you're not a reader, there's so many other things that you can do. But sitting there on that couch watching TV all day long is literally you're making your own deathbed. So, and this we come back to really kind of the overarching concept, which is change. So, yeah, I'm working with one of my toughest clients, my parents, and they're 80 years old. They have habits that have been...
Right. And you are their son.
I am their son, right.
They have to admit that, oh my gosh, you do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and they know nothing about positive intelligence or mental. I don't even want to bring that up because that might scare them. But it's been interesting to work with them and just say, small steps. It's change. I know that you've been doing the same thing all your life, but we can make some changes. And we're not trying to do everything in one day. Just one thing today.
Right.
Let's go for a 5-minute walk if it's decent enough outside. Or play a game together. Just turn off that TV.
Right.
And it's working. We actually just started it last week, and their energy level has already shifted. It's so exciting to see. But this stuff works.
Right.
It's change.
And it is also what they watch. I'm going to have another mom anecdote. My mom, she lost most of her vision. And she has passed away, but she was, pretty blind for the last couple years of her life. And so, couldn't get out and about too much. And so, she listened and somewhat watched TV. And she fixated on news programs, the 24-hour news cycle programs that are the world is coming to an end. And I don't care what ones you watch, the world is coming to an end.
It's all the same.
And, I am in Atlanta. She was in Kansas. And I started having people contact me saying, we're very worried about your mom. She has gotten so negative. And she was like your mom. She always was negative, but now it was, this is horrible, awful, and cranky and grumpy. And nobody wanted to be around her. So then nobody would take her places, things like that.
Sure.
And and I was thinking, oh, I don't know what to do. But it really didn't occur to me that it was the news. But she was a smart person and she figured this out on her own. And she she changed what she watched. And she, for the most part, really stuck to it. She switched to just watching 3 hours of news a day. She would watch her local news, morning and noon, because that way she knew what was going on weather-wise and all that good stuff. And then she would watch, the evening news for an hour. And I told her, I said, Mom, all you have to watch is an hour. They just repeat it over and over again. Now there were some programs that she watched, but and then the rest of the time, her TV was either on music, which that was great, or Hallmark movies. And and she was so funny. She said, I can fall asleep and wake up in a totally different movie and still know what's going to happen. Boy meets girl, boy and girl break up, boy and girl get married. And she was even fine when they started having boy and boy. And, she didn't care, but the change in her was incredible. She went back to being her kind of grumpy old woman self. But she was, it really was a very drastic change just to not have all that negativity going all the time. And I mean, it really was incredible when she made that. And I was very proud of her that she came to that decision all by herself.
Yeah, and you bring a couple really great points, Deb. One, you can't you can lead a horse to water, right? But you can't force them to drink it.
Right.
So people need to make that choice themselves. And what I've realized, Deb, is that all of us are always thinking, what's in it for me? We're selfish, right? And it could be corporate, a corporate change at work or something at home, diet, health, what have you. But you have to make that choice and you have to really be able to connect what's in it for me. So I ask people to get to the essence of that, like what's most important to you. And 95% of people say, especially if they have kids, my family.
Mhm.
I say, okay, well, if that is the most important thing to you, then if you embrace this change,
Mm.
right, whether it be at work or with your health, you're going to be able to have better time, better relationships with your kids and your spouse, your partner, and everyone else around you. And you're going to be healthier. So you're going to be able to spend more time. You're going to be able to watch your daughter walk down the aisle, see your grandkids, right? So when you can, it's not spinning it. It's just, that's the question. That's how we're wired. What's in it for me? Well, that's what's in it for
Yeah.
you. You just said this is the most important thing. You're going to have more of that and better of that by embracing some change.
Right. And as you said, positive change, being grateful. For those who are listening and not watching, I have the word grateful on the wall behind me.
Love it.
I flew over the weekend and was on 4 different flights, so 3 different airports, and I made a point of going up to TSA employees and thanking them.
Oh, good for you.
And
I love
there was one. It was really funny. He said, "Why?" I mean, he really was baffled, which meant nobody else had been doing it, right? And I said, "Well," he said, "all I'm doing is sitting here." And he was the person that kept people from going the wrong way in the security line, right? And I said, "You are here. That's you, when you don't have to be." And I said, "And maybe nobody else appreciates it, but I appreciate it."
I love that, Deb. I love it so much. I'm flying out Saturday to visit my
so
sister in
early.
Florida. Oh yeah, yes, we already, yeah. But I'm gonna use that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that. I'm a very grateful person. Big gratitude fan every day. Bookend if possible, but I love that, and it's funny. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
Really, just to say, like you said, the guy's like, why?
Mhm.
Because nobody would
Right.
take a moment just to do that. But yeah, goes a
Well,
long way.
and it's we all somehow find it easier to bitch and complain and whine.
Yep.
And now I'll be honest, I was really lucky. I was flying out of Hartsfield Jackson. The day before I flew, they said the security lines were 3 hours long. So I went very early. I was like, nope, not gonna, and I was ultimately going to Cleveland, and there's not a lot of flights, and so I knew I needed to make sure I got my flight. And for some reason, the security wait was non-existent. I mean, normal times I've had longer waits, and so I don't know what happened. And so I didn't have any trouble with all of that, but I still made a point of saying thank you to every single one of them. And really, many of them were startled. But the funny thing was, I would say, thank you so much. And the person behind me would go, yeah, thank you. And so hopefully we kind of had a ripple effect.
I love that. The ripple. Nothing better than a ripple. Contagious. It's
Right.
like,
Yeah, because it's contagious when we complain. So let's make it contagious to be positive.
right. And we're just negative biased people. That's who we are. That's our survival brain. And it's science. It's who we are. But
Yeah.
we have tools and techniques that we can overcome that. That's the 3-to-1 positive negative ratio and gratitude.
Right.
2 great things.
Right. Well, let's get into the business side.
Sure.
Because all of this obviously pertains. We want to have, we want to be positive in business. I think we probably all worked for negative people or with negative people. I had a boss that threw things and swore. And this was before you really had a lot of HR things, and so he could get away with it. And, and I told him, I said, you get to call me the B word once, and then I own your company. And he did. He called me that word once, and all I did was hold up one finger, and he never did it again. But he was a deeply unhappy person in all aspects of his life. And yeah, nobody worked for him longer than a year or so. And he had a very good company. It was just we couldn't tolerate that. And so, I love that you're bringing positivity into the workplace. So first of all, tell us why Bolt? Why did you bring that into your company?
Yeah, the bolts. Well, you can see if you're on video.
Yep, it's right behind you. Yeah.
Lightning bolt behind me. I got a lightning bolt gold chain hanging from my neck. It's always been about the bolt, Deb. And it starts from when I was a kid. and I was watching cartoons, and back then you could only watch cartoons for like an hour, right? You had a window. If you didn't make it down in the morning, you weren't going to see it.
Right. There were not Cartoon Network and
No. You had your 8 o'clock, get your cereal, sit down, boom. And Flash was always one of my favorites superheroes in the Justice League, and I just loved how he was witty and he was fast, obviously. And still am a short person. I've always been one of the short, so
you were an athlete.
yeah, speed and strength were my strengths and what I had to really focus on. And then, as I got into breakdancing in my teens, the lightning bolt, kind of that imagery, that symbol became a part of my tag, if you will, or what a logo, for my name at that time. And then it just seemed like it had always been a part of my life. And what I love is what it represents, which is, something really magnificent, but also destruction. And that's really life in general, but certainly was a big part of my life, where I was kind of destroying my mind and my body, but also kind of that transformation and, the power and the speed and the skeptical, that it is. I've always loved it. So it was a no-brainer that would be part of the brand, Todd Bertsch, and then the podcast, The Bolt, all about that power and transformation and leadership and personal growth. So
I love that. And of course, then Spark kind of, flows from that. And as I mentioned when I read your bio, it is in all caps. So let's talk about your Spark framework.
Yes, absolutely. So you can tell I'm a marketing guy.
I know,
A brand guy, right? So it's all got to tie in together. Maybe it's too much, I don't know, but people definitely know me as the Bolt guy, and
it makes it memorable, right? When somebody says, hey, we need a marketing guy, that Bolt guy, and then they could go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I had been doing a lot of research, Deb, studying really decades of behavioral research and psychology, and looking at, all the top leaders, global leaders and global organizations, and trying to find that through line, that pattern of those who sustained growth, performance, and change over time. And that's when this framework emerged. And it's really based on 5 key pillars. Curiosity, because that's the ignition point. We got to be curious, right? That's where the spark gets
Just
lit.
think about 3-year-olds with their why.
Exactly. Asking a million questions. And we can dig into some of these. The second is mindset. So really building that mental muscle, your mental strength, and then having that resiliency and self-command. And then all these organizations and leaders took intentional action with small steps. And then they built momentum over time through growth. And then the beautiful part is they all had this impact that scaled, that rippled out. So to me, that became the pattern of consistency for those who were extremely successful and had high performance and sustained growth. And that became the Spark framework. It is not an acronym. I tried really hard, Deb, but it got to a
Sometimes
point
you can't force those things.
it just seemed forced. And I'm like, you know what? It's not. It's gonna be curiosity. It's not gonna be whatever starts with an S. So yeah, it's the Spark framework. So now that's turning into a book, which will hopefully release at the end of this year, 2026, maybe into Q1 of next year. Also a coaching framework with workshops, half-day workshops. And then also I've created a Spark, I call it the SQ, the Spark Quotient Assessment Tool. So if anybody's interested in seeing how lit their spark is, and we base that off of 3 primary dimensions that are part of the Spark framework, which is we look at curiosity, mindset, and action. Very quick, 5 to 7 minutes, and you get emailed a lot of takeaways. So we'll hopefully I'll shoot that to you, and you can include that.
Well, you'll include it in the show notes.
Yep.
Perfect.
But yeah, so this is really part of my keynotes and part of my coaching practice. And it's really all wrapped around my main message, which has been a part of everything that I do, which is ignite your spark.
Right. And let's be honest, it's hard. it is hard right now. Whether you're a one-person business or, many employees, locations, all those things, there's just so many challenges going on in the world. I do a lot of podcast interviews with students from a school in Pakistan. It's the funnest thing in the world. They're studying AI and they're studying leadership, and as an assignment, they are to interview English-speaking business people. And once I did one, then they all just kind of latched on to me, right? Um, and it's so cute. I mean, one was 8, and she had the best questions ever, so it's a lot of fun. But I remember one time, we had the time set up, the time came, the time went. Okay, they're kids. Things happen. And so I gently, tried to say, if you're, when you have to reschedule, just let somebody know, we're all very busy, blah, blah, blah. And the response I got back was, so sorry, we were bombed.
Oh.
Okay. It was like, alrighty then, my world is pretty petty.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, there is so much going on, with the tariffs, and I don't care what political side you're on. There's so much that's going on there, just all sorts of things. And I'm not sure it's calmed down since COVID. I think it's just kind of all been this underlying angst. So how do you work with people to kind of get them past that, through that, whatever, however we do that?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up because we are definitely living in probably one of the biggest change disruptions that we've ever seen. And I agree. I don't think things have calmed down at all. So we went through a huge transition of our life during COVID, and then now we're dealing with AI and war and all the things, tariffs and all the things that are going on. I want to share this stat with you, Deb, that I learned from a podcast guest that I had a few months ago. She's in the change management industry. And so there's a stat from the Global Disruption Index that said there is a 183% rise in business disruption.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. And we don't need a stat, right? We see
We know.
we feel it, right?
Understaffed, overworked, all of those.
I don't care what industry you're in. Nonprofit organization, you're feeling it big time.
Right.
You're going to have to pivot. HR, right? They're carrying that weight on their shoulders. So every industry is feeling it. And it comes back to change, Deb, where we started, right? It's change. We're going to have to. I was thinking about this last night. I was walking my dog thinking about the conversation we're going to have. And really, if you don't embrace change, you are going to be out of work. I'm sorry.
And
it is going to
take AI out of the picture, because that's really going to make, but yeah, just in general.
Right. Just in general. People are looking for employees who are adaptable and flexible because there is so much change, and it's going to continue to be this way for the unforeseeable future. And if you don't embrace change, you're likely experiencing symptoms of a fixed mindset or being in a comfort zone, which is not good, and it's not the type of employee that people want. So you either get on the bus or get left behind. You remember that image of running
or run over by the bus.
What? Or run over by the bus. Yeah. So it all comes back to change. And I love this because our mind is playing so many tricks on us, right? Our survival brain, that whole fear-based survival brain that says, danger, Will Robinson. You remember that, Deb? Not everybody remembers that, but danger, Will Robinson, stay away. That is a saber-toothed tiger. Don't go there, right? And we need that. It's a signal.
Right. That keeps us alive.
It keeps us alive, but 90% of the time, it's not real danger.
Right.
It's keeping us from embracing something new, which is change, right? Getting out of our comfort zone, stretching, and feeling a little discomfort. which is what it takes. In order to grow, you have to experience a little bit, at least a little bit of discomfort to truly stretch, right?
Right.
And we as a society, we don't experience any discomfort. We live in this bubble, especially in the States. We live in this bubble.
Right.
He regulates everything in our life. And helicopter parents, our kids don't even experience. So they grow up, they don't know what it is.
Right.
No pain, no gain. What do you mean? I don't need pain. Give me a magic pill and everything's perfect. Well, that's not how it is. We need to really embrace. So what I do is I train people in getting out of their comfort zone and really embracing some discomfort. And Deb, it goes back. I love this full circle moment. One really great way to do that, anybody could do it, it's free and simple, is start to do some of your basic daily tasks with your non-dominant hand. So
Brush my teeth with the other hand. Okay.
Double whammy. So you're experiencing some discomfort and you're rewiring your brain.
Right.
Because you've never done that before.
Yeah.
You're really, it's a cognitive exercise.
Yeah. And there are times where we do have to do that. You hurt your dominant hand or, whatever. Yeah. But we all know, right? You go to brush your teeth and you
it just feels
fresh in your nose and,
it just feels awkward, right? But that's how we feel about discomfort. But the thing is, we crave it. And then once we taste it, it's like, oh, well, that was kind of fun. That wasn't that bad.
Right.
I can do this.
Yeah.
And that's when we start to rewire. And it goes back to, I'm sure you know who Tony Robbins is. Tony Robbins does a cold plunge every single morning. Why does he do that? Because he's training his brain that not all danger is bad, right? So he says, if that's the worst thing, the most difficult thing that happens to me today, everything else is going to be super easy. And he says it never gets easier. And most people that do cold plunges say, this sucks every time.
Your body does not like that.
And I am training my brain. And that's what we need to do, is build that resiliency so that we don't stay away. We don't run away from challenges, right? And we can start to embrace it. But, in a corporate environment, you need to create that psychological safety too. You need to create a safe space where people feel like they can kind of stretch and get out of their comfort zone without being judged in case they fail. Because most of the times when you experience something new, you're likely going to fail. You're not going to do it perfect because it's new. And then we beat up on ourselves, especially if we have perfectionist tendencies, and it can be a nasty rabbit hole that we go down. But at the end of the day, it's all about change and embracing some discomfort. And all these things are trainable. It's all up here in this guy. It's all up here. So we say there's a concept in positive intelligence, Deb, and I love this. It's called the hand on the hot stove concept. So do me a favor and stick your hand out like me.
Okay.
And if you're not on video, we're sticking our hands out. Now pretend your hand's on a hot stove.
Ow.
Yeah, right?
Right. We move it.
We move it. It's a signal, right? So we only need it long enough to know that we're in harm's way. But if you hold on to it for longer than a second, you start to sabotage your mind. You start to sabotage your performance, your well-being, and your relationships.
Right.
Get your hand off the hot stove.
Right.
That's it. I love it.
And you mentioned one of the most powerful words, and that's resilience. And I think part of the problem now is we're beat down. We've got, and whatever it is, we were stuck at home with COVID. We were sick with COVID. We were, this, we were that. Now our bosses are saying we have to go back in and we don't like the office anymore. And now gas prices are astronomical and it's just this constant beating. So, it's easy to give up. How do we get that motivation, that spark to go back forward again? See, I know how to do this.
You do. You just tossed me a softball. I love it. And the best way, that's all stress. It all comes down to really sustained stress. Burnouts, disengagements, they all lead back to sustained stress. And once we can alleviate, we don't get rid of stress.
Right.
It's always there. It's how you manage and handle it. And that, again, comes with mental fitness training and other means, mindfulness practices. But if you can ignite your spark, then everything in your life looks a whole lot different. Your stress level is way low because what you're doing, you love. So all the little things that used to annoy you, they don't bother you anymore. And the best way to ignite your spark is one simple phrase, Deb. Remember who you've always been. Just remember, you have everything you need. Right? Every one of us, every single one of us, every one of your listeners is lit up by something. For some of us, it was a kid, as you mentioned. Maybe it's on the playground, being an anthropologist, exploring, discovering. For others, it happened later in life, maybe in college, or maybe your first or second job. Whatever it is, there's something that lights you up. And when you choose to remember who you've always been, then you choose growth or comfort. And it is a beautiful thing. And I've seen it time and time again. And Deb, I've been there. I've lit my spark twice. Because here's the thing. It's one thing to ignite. It's another to sustain.
Right.
And that's
we're not saying blow up.
No, this isn't. No, this is not. This is a process. And that's why I built the Spark framework, because that one, curiosity is kind of that ignition point. By asking that question is curious, right? Who have I always been? Well, Todd has always been a designer, a creator, a builder. And how did I ignite? I went back to my childhood home, my childhood room, and all the sketchbooks. That was remembering who I've always been. And Deb, man, I tell you, when you're lit up, life is awesome every single day. And yeah, don't get me wrong. It's not perfect. It's not rainbows and puppies and cats. Unicorns. Things happen, sure. But man, when your spark is lit, everything changes.
Right.
Everything changes in the workplace, at home. And when you're happy at home, that surfaces into work and vice versa. So that's what I say, if you see smoke signals, and this is what I teach in my keynotes and in my coaching practice, if you see smoke signals in your employees or yourself, and they look like energy dropping, curiosity shutting down, ownership fading, people getting protective, defensive instead of proactive, that's the smoke. They're throwing it up.
Okay.
So you can either approach that from a performance issue or get curious and just approach it from curiosity, right? And intervene and say, well, what lights you up, right? What about this role really energizes you, and what drains you? And if you could create the ideal role, what would that look like?
Right.
And that's a beautiful thing to be able to ask that to one of your employees. And then you're just really being a partner with them. And not everybody can go into a new role, right? But at least by asking and inviting them to think about what they really love doing. And maybe it's not at your organization anymore. Maybe it is time to go. I'd rather have somebody who's lit up and hungry and loves a role as opposed to somebody who is disengaged and burned out.
Right. Well, let's be honest. It's often easier to keep the status quo, to just, now you are not going to remember this because you're not that old. There was a Dunkin' Donuts commercial years ago, and the little guy, his alarm would go off 4:00 in the morning. Gotta make the donuts. Next morning, gotta make the donuts. And it really was that. He just, he just kept saying, I just have to do this. I just have to do this. And it was easier for him to just get up and make the donuts than to say, oh, what if we came up with a different type of donut? Or maybe I shouldn't be making donuts. It was just, he was in that habit. That habit was comfortable. All of those things. And so how do you get people kind of out of that? I mean, obviously, or I shouldn't say it. To me, it would be obvious that they'd have to want to do it first. But can you give them a gentle nudge to get them there?
Yes, absolutely. And that's called the old reframe game, Deb. So you want to play?
Mm-hmm.
Let's play the reframe game.
I'm ready.
All right. So you have an obligation statement. Oh, I have to. Okay. I have to blank. So think about a recent situation that you're about to encounter or that you've had, the past couple of days where you said, oh, I have to blank. Now reframe that to, oh, I get to.
I get
blank.
to. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then think about the gift and the opportunity in that reframe. And I'll give you a great example. And listen to my tone. And for those on video, you can see my posture. Deb, oh, I have to learn AI or I'm going to be obsolete. Okay. The reframe, I get to. I get to learn AI, get out of my comfort zone, learn something new. See the shift? Now here's the kicker. Here's the gift. AI can handle most of my mundane tasks so that I can do the work that really lights me up. Obligation, opportunity, gift. And Deb, we all love gifts. Right. So let's go get more gifts. A simple shift in your mindset can change the situation.
Right. And again, that's, when you are looking at other people, and maybe helping them. Okay, if you see somebody going, I have to do. Well, what can you, how can you help them and maybe give them a spark?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have the power to help people ignite.
Right.
And when yours is lit, you have more of that power. And that's that last pillar in the Spark framework, which is impact. Because you start to multiply, you amplify, you ripple out into others. And as a leader, as a parent, as a coach, it's not only our privilege, it's our responsibility to have the impact, to pour into others so we can really spread that light.
Right. We got a little tech gremlin going on right now where your video is frozen, but your audio is still fine. So we're just going merrily along.
I didn't say anything. I noticed, and I can still hear you.
It's my end.
Okay.
I'm sure. But yeah, the audio sounds good. So we're just, look, there you're back. And so, so for those of you who were watching, we're back. But yeah, it's, and I think more than anything, what I'm getting from all of this is it takes a village, right? It's not just what can I do for me, but what can I do for others? And that's going to help us individually grow, but yeah, how can I help others? And that's back to that gratitude. That's, all of those various things.
Absolutely. Servant leadership. It's our responsibility.
Right.
It's not I, it's we.
Right. And I want to be honest, folks. There are times where we're going to be gloomy doomy. I mean, I have people who say, oh, you're always so happy. You're always so positive. You've had cancer 3 times. And I'm like, well, I show happy and positive. I'm not going to do a Zoom. I'm not going to do anything like that. Hi, how are you today?
Right.
That might be how I am 5 minutes after we're done. But that also, it's funny. One of the things I study is how happiness can affect us, right?
Absolutely.
And laughter. I mean, we all know laughter is a great medicine, but we can trick our brains. This is another one of these brain things, right?
Yeah.
Where fake laughter, your brain doesn't know that it's fake laughter. And so it will automatically improve you. And so it is kind of weird to go around going, ha, 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 right? But yeah, we can trick our brain into thinking things are better than they are. And so that's my tip, folks. Add some happiness into your life and some laughter.
Positivity. And Deb, one of my keynotes when I first started out was the power of positivity. And I used to start off by having everybody in the audience look to the person next to them with a big smile on their face.
Right.
And then I'd have on the screen Buddy the Elf, right? Because he loved smiling.
Right.
And smiling's my favorite. But anyhow, by smiling is like a yawn. It is extremely...
It is contagious.
And what happens when you smile is you're starting to release these neurotransmitters, right? So the dopamine, serotonin, right? So you're feeling you're feeling that kind of injection of
Those positive. Yep.
Yep. A smile, walking into a room. You know, I always say, if you were to go into a networking event and there were two different rooms and you just peeked in the door and you saw one room to the left, which is full of people, you know, not smiling with frowns and looking grumpy, negative Nellies.
Right.
And then you look at the next room and they're all happy and smiling. Which room do you want to go into?
Right. Yeah.
Who do you want to have a conversation with? Right.
Right.
So simple tip, honestly, Deb, all this stuff is based on decades of behavioral research, psychology, and now neuroscience, but it's all super easy. And you don't need an elaborate coaching program or leadership program. You can start to do any of these today. And my advice is start with one. I always say start with a gratitude practice because it's simple, easy. You can do it in 1 minute. Everybody can do it. I don't care how many commitments you have in life. And that changes your perspective of the whole day.
Right. Right. You know, and it's a simple twist, like you were saying. You know, you're in traffic and you are thinking, ugh, it's horrible. It's awful. I hate this. Your gratitude is, I've got a car. I've got a great home to go to. You know, so how can you just reframe it?
Right.
Well, oh my gosh, Todd, we are at the top of the hour. This has been so much fun. But for people who are going, okay, I need a little more help with this than I can do myself, or I need you to come in and help my team, my company, how do they find you and what are the services that you provide?
Yeah, I would invite you to go to toddbertsch.com. That's BERTSCH.
Right. We'll have a link in the show notes.
Yes, thank you so much. And, you know, what I do is I come out to conferences, corporate entities, offsites, corporate offsites, all staff in services. I'll do a 60, 90-minute keynote. And then also I offer a variety of coaching programs. One is an 8-week program on positive intelligence, which is building your mental muscle. We usually do that in cohorts of 5, 6, or 7. Start with your leadership team and take your middle management and really scale it down throughout the organization so everyone has that shared language. And I also have my Spark workshops that are half-day workshops based on the 5 pillars of my Spark framework as well. Check out the Bolt podcast as well. And I'm going to send Deb a link to a page that's going to have a free 30-day playbook that you can download. A really nice PDF, great takeaway, and also a link to my Spark assessment tool. And really, if you're interested in how lit your spark is, just take 5 to 7 minutes, fill it out. It's insights, and then I'll provide you with some actionable items.
Great. I love that. I love that. And yes, we will have all of those links in there. Well, we have to have you back on again when your book comes out. And so, you know, so looking forward to that. And yeah, I still have a whole bunch of questions that I didn't even get through. So we will do that. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yeah, I want to say this, Deb, and this is the biggest misconception. This is the biggest misconception that most people have. Growth is not about becoming somebody new. It really isn't. You have everything you need. It's about remembering who you've always been and letting that light shine. That's it. It's really simple. You can make a choice. You can ignite like that. That's how simple it is. Find your passion, find what lights you up, and you deserve that. And you'll be able to serve, you'll be able to spread that light to everybody you serve. Your kids, your family, your colleagues, your direct reports. It's a beautiful thing. I just want everyone to be lit up and happy.
I love it. Well, I am Deb Creer. I've been having so much fun talking with Todd Bertsch. Can't wait until his book comes out so that we can talk about this again. But until then, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.